Welcome home, everyone. Thank you for joining in on this episode of Welcome Home with the Katinas. Welcome Home is a podcast where I, your host Josh, sit down for a conversation with different people who I admire and discuss whatever's on their mind, and especially focus on life at home in times like this. Wherever you are and however you're listening, thank you for your support, and once again, welcome home. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining in on this week's episode of Welcome Home with the Katinas. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but if you're listening now or watching now on YouTube, you are listening to the 100th episode of this show. You'll probably notice that the scene here is a little different than the past 99 episodes, and that is intentional. I wanted this episode to be special for all of our supporters, our listeners, our viewers. And, you know, I was reflecting this morning before we started recording just on, it's been almost 2 years now since this show started. The birthday of the show is July 14th. So from the time this episode comes out, it'll be about 4 weeks away from 2 years. But over these past 100 weeks now, it's really been a blessing for me to be a part of all these different conversations that I've gotten to have with people who I know really well, some people I don't know that well. But if you know me, you probably wouldn't think that I'm a super talkative guy. And the truth is I'm not. I don't feel like I necessarily want to talk all the time, but for 100 weeks now, I've at least once a week sat down for an hour or so and just talked. And that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for the people like you who are listening to this show, watching this show, who support us every week, and especially to those of you who support us financially. This episode is for you guys, because without you, there's no way we would have made it to 100 episodes. And so I want to thank you on behalf of my family for all of your support, for your generosity and continued support moving forward. And I want to remind everyone that if you'd like to become a partner of not only this show, but also the Katinas ministry in general, the best way to do that is to visit thekatinas.com, and you'll find a give button there on the website. Just click that and it'll take you to where you need to go. And thank you in advance for that. So, like I said earlier, today is a little different. I don't just have one guest, I have 5 guests, which is a different challenge for me. It's if you're only listening and you can't see the video, I'm here with my dad and my 4 uncles. And we're here in, what do you guys call this? 5KHQ? There's lots of different names for it, but we're here in the home where the Katinas operate from. Yeah. A lot of what you guys do, almost all of what you guys do, starts here in this home. And so, you know, over the last 100 weeks, I've been asking this question to my guests: what's going on at home? And I think it's appropriate that for episode 100, we're in a different home. And I'd love to ask you guys, as we begin the next season of this podcast, if whoever wants to talk could share about what this home is, how long you guys have been here, and what all goes on here at home.
Well, first of all, Josh, I just want to say congratulations to you on 100 shows, 100 episodes.
Big time, man.
And it's not just the Welcome Home podcast, but it's really you just driving this vision. And it's been awesome to see the progression. And here we are. It's a little different. When I think about this home, and we were just talking about it, We've been in it for close to 5 years, and a lot has happened. I'm thinking particularly of about 3 years ago when everything shut down. We almost were living in this home. The five of us and our whole team, which is basically our nephews and nieces. Courtney's here with us. And a lot has happened here, a lot of prayer, a lot of just brainstorming, like what do we do? How do we figure out what this all looks like? And so this home is special because I think while we didn't have all the answers, we figured some things out in this room and we implemented it. We, slowly but surely, we got gear to operate, to do what we do, especially virtually online, like the podcast. So this home has been special. We've actually been talking about how do we feel like we're kind of outgrowing it, but for however long we're going to be in this home, I believe that the message, the content, everything that we've done, I believe if even one person has tuned in, it's been worth it all. So it's been great.
Yeah, this space, it means a lot. Like Uncle James said, I believe it was February of this year. We came back from taking a month off, and it was our first time back in the office in this place. And I remember I wasn't that excited to be back, but once things started going, man, I realized like, wow, this is what we get to do. And prepare, we rehearse. There are certain days where we start our days off with prayer meeting, and this is also where we house all of our merchandise. And it's cool, man, to be out on the road and see people come to our concerts or church services wearing our gear, and it all starts from here. Right here down the hall, we have some of the Love Squared interns, and they live here for several months. And so, yeah, a lot goes on here, man.
I feel like I could write a book about this home. It's for about 4.5 years. This was actually where I lived. Going through one of the darkest seasons of my life. My partners, my brothers, when I was just trying to transition and navigate through separation and divorce, were kind enough to say, hey, man, there's an extra room. The back room on the left, have at it. And so it really was, it was different because you're working in this space, but then yet you live here. I never experienced that in my life. So I'll always remember that, and just literally launched me into where I'm at now. Yeah. Married again, but if it wasn't for this space and this home that it really was my sanctuary, I don't think I'd be here. And so it's significant for me.
Thanks, Uncle. Just thinking about this place over the years, there's a lot of stories. One just came to mind while you guys were talking, and right up against that wall right there, back in 2020 during the pandemic, there used to be a desk there with a computer on it, and in that spot, I feel like something special started for you, Uncle Yeti, and that's where you started learning just the very basics of music production.
That's where you started teaching me.
Yeah, do you remember those times? Absolutely. Well, I actually remember before that desk, there used to be a wall right behind me, and so that was a separate room. And I remember I had just come home from college, and I didn't have a job, didn't really have anything to do with my time. And you actually reached out to me, Uncle Yeti, and you said, Josh, I know you know a little bit about recording music and stuff. I really would like to start creating tracks. Do you think you could come over to the house and we can do that? And so we sat in this room, and I think we did, we recorded like the national anthem in here. Do you guys remember that?
We sure do.
I think so.
And then maybe some worship songs. That was at the very beginning. You were just playing the keys, and I was running on my old laptop. But eventually it turned into this right here, kind of your guys' first studio. what are your memories of that time back? I guess 3 years ago now, Uncle.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that time, Josh, because up until that time, we would always work with other producers and whoever had a studio available. So I say that good things come out of the pandemic. It was when we were just shut down, and sometimes we need to get shut down, to learn new things. And what was that? 2-3 years ago, and man, you taught me, the basics, and so I'd go home and Auntie would come up. Hey, it's 4 a.m. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm like, oh. I was just going crazy. The other thing I learned too, Josh, I might have shared this with you, but sometimes late at night, I'm just putting layer after layer of all this stuff. Oh, yeah. And then I go to sleep, and then I wake up in the morning, I go, this is buns.
Terrible, man.
It's like, oh my gosh. So
The goal was to fill up all the space.
Yeah, when you're tired, you need to go to sleep. You need to go to sleep.
It's actually, it's funny you said, I was actually talking to a guy, Alexis introduced me to him. He actually said years ago he played drums on one of your guys' projects. His name was Ben Phillips, yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Ben's a mixing engineer now, but
Yeah.
I was just kind of talking music production with him, and he actually said that there is a science behind why the stuff you make at night sounds bad the next day. And he was basically saying, like, our ears, just like any other muscle in our body, they get fatigued. Yeah, and so if you're doing stuff late at night, your ears are actually tired. And so it's not going to sound the same in the morning. I don't know. He said that all of his like heavy work, he always does first thing in the morning when his ears are the freshest. But
That's good, man.
You're still teaching me, Josh.
that's just what Ben Phillips told me. So there is a reason the desk isn't there anymore, because Uncle Yeti would be here too late. I'm just going through memories now of the pandemic. Was kind of when I first started spending more time at this house. My brother used to live here. He did live here during that. I remember this was probably March 2020 when everything started escalating. I was here late at night in the studio, and I was walking to my car out there in the driveway, and I saw on Twitter, or maybe somebody texted me, that the city of Nashville was closing down, and they had a shelter-in-place order in Nashville. And I feel like that was the first time during that pandemic where I had a legitimate fear. I was really scared, and it was here at this house. And if you think back all those years ago now, it's easy to look back now and think, with all of our hindsight, we know what happened and we know different things. But back then, I felt like there was so much confusion. Like I didn't know. I had no idea. Is the world just shutting down forever? Like I had no reason to believe it wasn't at that time. But the next day, I came back to this house, and day after day, I had come back, and Eli was here. Our brother Dan was here. Uncle John, you were here, and this home kind of became a safe haven for me, just because as scared as I was, I knew that I could come here and be with people I loved and do things that I loved. But I'll move on. Still talking about this home, and Dad, maybe you can speak to this about, for you guys as a ministry and as a business as well. You guys didn't always have an office, a home office. It's funny to think that you guys made it for years without that. But I just want to ask you, Dad, or any of the uncles, what was it that made you feel like, okay, we need a different place. We need somewhere outside of our own living rooms that we can come to and work?
Man, that's a great question, Josh. I think lately I've been talking a lot about failure and mistakes, and how I think most of my life I tried to, we can't fail. We can't make mistakes. And I get where that thought comes from, but at the same time, I want to encourage anybody watching, or whether you're in a small business or you're doing music, or you want to pursue something, man, you're gonna have to come to terms with you're gonna fail, you're gonna make mistakes. Every shot you don't take is a shot you miss, and I think for years we just met. We literally met in our living rooms or dining rooms. We would move, and I think for me, I can't speak for uncles, there was a fear that, well, why spend money on somewhere where we can just meet for free? And by the grace of God, we made it. But man, little by little, what we didn't know is our business was declining because we didn't make the wise decision to get an office space. Till I think it was 2017 when we were literally, I don't think I'm being dramatic, but we were 1 or 2 months away from closing down as far as a ministry and business, to where we looked at our books and thought, oh man, why all of a sudden this was after 25 years, if something doesn't change, we're going to be out of business. And so we met with one of our friends who's been on the show, Jeff Helton, and he kind of took us through a couple of this 2-day strat op situation. And one of the things he said, guys, you need to get an office space. You need to. And our first office space was like 750 square feet. Literally.
I remember.
You remember that?
Place, yeah.
And we were so proud of that. Remember, I was so proud, but I was scared too. Like, okay, we're already losing money. We're not sure if we're gonna make it past several months, and now we're paying $750 for an office space. Wow. When I look back at that, I think, dang, how naive or foolish I was for thinking we're not going to get our return on this. So I think we outgrew that place less than a year.
Yeah, close to a year.
Close to a year, and then we came here. So we needed this place. It was worth the investment. It is worth the investment. As you guys were talking about the pandemic, I remember a lot was learned here. I remember Eli learning how to edit these worship sets that we literally, that's how we earned a living for about 6 months during the pandemic. I remember when the wall was there, we had this big whiteboard, and I remember literally meeting after one of our prayer meetings. Now we pray every Monday when we're in town. Back then, dude, we were praying every day. Yeah. I mean, and I remember it was desperate times. And I remember us writing the amount of money we had left in our accounts and saying, guys, we have 6 months. And if another dollar doesn't come in, then we got to start figuring out what we're going to do. So I thank God for his provision. I thank God for his faithfulness. But I want to say that moving to this place came out of a place of just making mistakes and failure. And I know we're not done failing or making mistakes, but thank God for where we're at today.
Yeah, one thing, Josh, is that I can remember about this office. It was like a refuge for me in the very beginning, because prior to the pandemic, we were doing about 100 shows a year. And so we were gone, and that was just our cadence, and all of our families got used to that. And then when the shutdown happened, all our dates were canceled, and then and Auntie and I are empty nesters, and so there are no girls there, it's just Auntie and I. And man, we just started talking about a lot of things that we avoided in the past years, just because I'm not home. And so, the office was like, woo!
Hold that conversation. I'll be back.
I'm going to the spa.
Yeah, exactly.
The man's spa.
But I got to say that a lot of the fault was on my part. Just talking about different things that we needed to talk about, and now, 3 years removed from the beginning of the pandemic, man, I'm just grateful for an amazing wife, we've learned a lot of things. You know, you
Yeah.
think, man, 30 years in the marriage, you got it all, but man, I would say these last 3 years have been just a growing spurt in our relationship. So grateful for that. But Joe, you were talking about the office, and I think that one thing that we've experienced as a small business is like trying to toe the line between being conservative, but then also taking calculated risks when you need to grow. And small businesses are out there, and it's tough to navigate. But I think you have to have both. You have to believe for an office space and and stretch yourself and just not settle.
That's good. Oh, one thing I learned, Josh, by being here in the office / my home was, our dad was in the Marines, and of course there's 19 kids between us, and so having kids and trying to teach them, to clean their rooms, this and the other. I learned that my version of a clean room versus, 4 single guys, their version of a clean room was different. I'll leave it at that.
The other thing, Josh, the office, man, I'm so grateful for this place. And I think it's taken a while, but pulling up, it's amazing how my mind just automatically shifts to what are we going to do? What are we going to rehearse? What are we going to talk about? The execution for me is at a different level because I think that's what this office, it's amazing. When I'm at home, I probably say I don't sing at all. I don't sing in the shower. I don't sing around the house because we do so much over here at the office and talking about the details. Matter of fact, when we're out on the road, I try to do my best by being in the moment, being in service, but I can't help when I close my eyes. I literally feel like I'm in the office because we rehearsed and sang these songs so many times. But yeah, so I'm grateful for this place that we can just come, figure out what we're gonna do, learn it, and once we leave, it's family time, man.
Yeah, I'm thankful for this place too, and I'm hopeful that moving forward, many of our podcasts will be here in this house, so people can see it. And I'm thinking, so this episode will come out end of June. So where we're at right now, this hasn't happened yet. But by the time the episode does come out, it will be in the past that there will be a doctor in the family. And, I was, last night I had the treat of watching your guys' Hymns and Stories show for the first time live. And as I was watching, I was, hearing the stories about our family and things that, are landmarks in our family. And I was thinking that, that story's still being written. And I think one of the stories that's going to be told years from now is that from the humble beginnings of our family, somehow someone became a Dr. Katina. And so it'll be a few weeks in the past when this comes out. But Uncle James, I'd love if you could just talk a little bit what it means to have a doctor in the family.
Wow.
Uncle James is not the doctor.
Yeah,
Yes.
Uncle James, not the doctor.
Just to clarify, I am the farthest thing from a doctor.
The father of the doctor.
Josh, I think that, so just think about the name of this podcast, right? It's Welcome Home with the Katinas. So a lot of what we're even talking about, conversation we're having now, is just about the family, the home. We shared in the show last night really snippets of the history of the Katina family. And it's humbling when even when we're performing, but it's humbling to think about the history of this family and where we come from, where we started from. And so fast forward, and I think about this journey that Jackson's been on. For people who don't know, I think it's an interesting part of his story is that Jackson's always been athletic, you know, coming up as a kid, and really became a pretty good soccer player. And as a matter of fact, we thought that that may be a possibility for him to, you know, go to college on a soccer deal or whatever, a scholarship. But he blew his knee out senior year in high school, and that pretty much ended his soccer career dreams or whatever. The guy that was the therapist that was doing the rehab for Jack, long story short, pretty much said, "Hey, you'd be a good therapist," and that's really where the journey started. Wow. But I think about, you know, the resiliency, the grind that he's put in, all of that. You know, you have to have that. But I think, and Jackson will say, a lot of where he's at in becoming a licensed physical therapist just comes from this place of gratitude, this place of acknowledging people who came before him, people that had courage. Maybe they were never doctors and would never become doctors, but some of those seeds that were planted in him allowed for him to take the opportunity. And obviously, I can't say enough about how proud I am of my son, that he's the first, but I believe he's just the first of many to come. Yeah. You know, that it's, and it's a testament. It's a testament to our forefathers, you know, our great-grandparents, our grandparents, of course, our mom and dad, and so on. And I'm thankful that Jackson has a village, a tribe, a family of people that have contributed to where he's at. But it's a blessing to be able to say that I'm a father of a doctor.
You should be proud,
Pretty
Uncle.
cool. Yeah.
I remember growing up, being young, and you know, you guys have lots of loyal fans and supporters, and oftentimes people would come up to me or my cousins when we were younger and say, so are you guys going to sing like your dads when you grow up? Are you guys going to be a band? Are you guys going to be the next generation of the Katinas? And you know, I'm sure maybe that was a dream when we were young for some of us, maybe some not. But as I get older and my cousins get older, I'm seeing new dreams come to fruition. Jackson is a great example of that. It's just that he's doing something that, as far as I know, no one in our family has ever done before. And I don't know. I wonder if you guys can look back at your childhoods and young adult lives, because I assume that part of your dreams were to be doing what you're doing today, right? But I'm not sure. I'm curious if you guys had the foresight to see the scope of our family and those dreams expanding as generations come and go. What do you guys think about that?
Man, Josh, I've been listening a lot to motivational speakers a lot, and I know this is not a new concept, but one that I've been playing on repeat this last week is choose your heart. Choose your heart. It's hard to do what we've done, to stay together, working together as brothers for over 30 years. That's really hard. It's hard to do what our kids are doing, to make a life. Literally, you don't go to work with your brother. Courtney doesn't go to work with her. Everybody, Jackson is a doctor on his own. So, and I was thinking about all of our kids the other day, recently, just how, I mean, I hope doesn't come across insensitive, but every one of them who are working are crushing it in their field. Man, and they had to choose their heart. You know, you guys could have chose to say, oh, we're all going to work together. That would have been really hard. What you're doing is really hard. So watching you guys your different industries and in your different fields grow and succeed. I think I echo what Uncle James said. All of us could say we could not be more proud. You know, Boston, when this comes out, Boston will just graduated. I think, you know, I don't know what number is Boston graduating. Maybe 7, 8 in all the in our out of the 19 so far, somewhere of there. It doesn't get any less emotional. I think if anything, maybe it gets more emotional because we realize in today's, not everybody graduates from high school, and the things that people have to go through to graduate is, I've been telling Uncle Jesse, man, celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. We don't want to get numb or just too familiar with accomplishments of our kids. So choose your heart. And I want to say this about Jackson. I told uncles yesterday, man, I've had a stiff neck and bad shoulders for the last 6 months. Really, I'm serious. I'm going to preach a message someday on the gospel of therapy, because I think physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I know I felt this. Well, I'll get better tomorrow. It'll change tomorrow. I'll get better. But if you don't do things to help you get better, you're not going to get better. So I almost went in to get surgery. And I talked to Jackson, and he said, well, Uncle, before you do that, why don't you come and see me? And if I'm honest, I think I've just never really believed in physical therapy. I've never been through it. But I think my feeling was like, well, what are they going to do? Man, yesterday was my second visit. I'm 80% better.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I told Jackson, he just laughed like, well, yeah, that's what we do.
It works.
And so I think if you're listening to this podcast, or you're watching, I don't know what your need is, maybe physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, man, there's some good therapy out there. Some of it is going to church. Some of it is going to see a counselor. Some of it is going to see a physical therapist. But, man, there's help. There's a lot of help. So I'm proud of Jackson. It's cool. When I walk in, he's the only guy.
Yeah.
There's like 8 other girls. Young. I say girls because they're all young.
Yeah.
I could be everyone's dad in there. They all respect him. And, man, there's a pride in me that comes when Jackson says, yeah, this is my uncle. I'm treating my uncle. And I'm like, this dude is helping me to live without pain.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Speaking of therapy, Dad, I think I talked about this actually on Jackson's episode, that over the last maybe month or so, I've been going to therapy myself. And I'm actually going today. And maybe we can finish on this. It'll be kind of a fun thing. But one thing that I've been talking with my therapist about is learning to ask for things, and being confident in the things that I want, right? And so one thing that he's taught me is that it's much easier to get things if you ask for them. And so as
What
this
a concept.
as this
People can't read your mind?
Exactly. But as we move forward into this next season of the podcast, it won't be all 6 of us every week, right? Well, and hopefully we'll still have guests on and special guests, and I want to continue doing that for sure. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask for a podcast guest. Maybe they're out there listening, or maybe someone can tag them, or it can be anybody. There's some people in my mind that are like, wow, it would be awesome to have them on a podcast. So I'll just give it over to you guys. If you can think of anyone that you'd like to have on here at home with Welcome Home with the Katinas, just say their names.
Well, I've been listening to this guy, Eric Thomas, E.T. I don't know where he's at in his faith. He's got to be a believer, but whether he is or not, he has the gift of motivating you and making you think that it doesn't matter where your background is. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. Your history is your history. Where you're going is what you do with today. And I don't know. I know there's moments, and I'm learning this in therapy, that it's not always positive and not always a day to go crush it. Some days is necessary for sadness. Some days are days of grief. Some days are days of anger. some days are days of questioning, but all days are days for growth. And so, man, I Eric Thomas, if you're out there,
Yeah. Anyone
on.
with Eric Thomas connections.
Mine would be he's a motivational speaker, coach, guy by the name of Tim Grover.
Tim Grover.
Tim Grover wrote the book Relentless. He was a personal trainer for Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and this guy. Well, just even that book. I don't know him personally, but if you're out there, Tim, we'd love for you to come and join us. I think the idea of going from good to great, that's the journey that never ends, right? Just like there's no, from a human standpoint, you can't reach perfection, but it's okay to pursue just getting better and better, never settling. And I think, I don't know his whole life story, but something tells me that some things have happened to him, and now he's been working with, the best of the best. So he would be a cool guy to have.
Tim Grover.
Yeah.
there's a young lady, she probably late 20s, early 30s, Jackie Hill Perry. I don't know if any of you follow her, but
Yeah, I
I follow
do.
her. She's awesome, and her husband Preston. Testimony is really all about transformation. Living most of her life in urban America. But what's really intriguing to me about her is, the way she talks about, as urban as she is and she looks, just about holiness and righteousness,
Yeah.
and how she relates to the culture is man, it's interesting, but it's powerful. And just by seeing the followers on social media, she's making an impact.
Yeah.
I'd love to have her on.
Jackie Hill Perry.
Yeah.
Let's
Go, Jackie.
Uncles.
Let's do
You
it.
guys
Yeah,
have anyone?
I'm excited about just the next 100 episodes of this podcast. And sometimes I listen to podcasts and I'm like, man, it's free education, man. It's a free education. But I was thinking about this this man that Auntie Kathy met, and she talked to him about being a guest, and he would love to. He's 97 years old. He's a war veteran, and I always love just talking to just elderly people because I've watched them, some of them during the pandemic. They're just unmoved. They're not moved by it. They're just like, we went through this in 19 whatever, and so just to have somebody with some wisdom, man. We were talking earlier about our kids, and I feel like I always tell our kids, I tell my girls, you guys, you're going to do greater things. The five of us worked really hard, but if you guys don't do greater things than us, and yet the world is getting darker, and the world needs more, then there's a lot of people that are satisfied with just they die, they're on the top, and I feel like our vision has always been our kids, they're going to do off the chart stuff, and it's amazing too because it doesn't look like what the five brothers did. It's different. It's the doctor. It's people in branding, marketing, just all the gifts. And I'm excited about that, man. And I think if we just keep getting guests like 97-year-olds, just people who have experience, people who have wisdom, I think it'd be great.
We can learn from them.
Josh, you'd probably expect this from me after being on the podcast several times and how we end our conversations. I would like to have Stephen A. Smith here, man.
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
So we could pounce on him.
Stephen A. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but the Katinas want you here, man. I respect you
To
Stephen
address
A.
the conundrums and the audacity.
I have two guests. I have lots, but two that I want to say out loud. And one is sports related, and I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know if you guys have seen the general manager of the Warriors, at least for now, Bob Myers, has been doing podcasts. I would love for Rob Pelinka to come.
Man.
Rob, let's go.
What's funny?
Come on,
So
Rob.
Rob Pelinka is the general manager of the Lakers. He actually met our cousin Dan at the SEC tournament here in Nashville. So I know Rob can come to Nashville. So.
Did you say that Rob met Dan?
Yeah, Rob met Dan.
That's right. That's right.
And I won't say what Uncle John has said on the thread, but this dude owes Rob
Yes.
Pelinka many
Okay.
apologies.
I'd like to have a face-to-face with him.
Well, I know all these guys at this table have all these theories, and I can already see Pelinka saying, "Yeah, but that doesn't work with this and that. You guys don't know what you're talking about." So I would love for Pelinka.
Stick to your thread.
I already told these guys I'm glad that Jesus is not like them because, you know, when a person does good, oh, he's amazing. When he does bad, he sucks.
Terrible, man.
So one is Rob Pelinka, and then the other one is a guy who I've read a book of his, and I've followed him on social media for years. And I actually know that he has graciously just gone on people's podcasts who are maybe not huge followings like him, but his name's Bob Goff.
It's great.
Bob Goff, if you know anything about him, you know it would be a treat to have him here in this room. So if anyone out there has Bob Goff connections, or Bob, if you're watching here, my name's Josh, and I'd love to have you on this
I think
podcast.
our boy Jeremy Williams knows him.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there you go.
Jeremy,
There you go, Jeremy.
former guest of
Do
the
us a
show,
solid,
Jeremy. Yeah, I would love to have Bob Goff here on the show. I think he'd be a treat. But, well, uncles,
I love this, Josh.
thank you guys for your time, and thank you for supporting me for the last 100 weeks, and I look forward to the next 100.
Happy 100th, man.
Thank you for
guys.
the great
Let's go.
job you're
Love
doing,
you, bud.
Josh.
You guys.
Let's
Crushing
go.
it.
To those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with more episodes soon. Have a great day.